Yeah, maybe policy-wise, I would do better under the Democrats or Bernie Sanders, but these other people just seem fucking crazy. I just don't feel like anybody in this country can even presume that what people think about them is anywhere near the truth. They seem like committed to just going to absurd lengths just for shits and giggles, just for the fuck of it, just this bizarre attachment to things that are just ridiculous. To your point about, is he just crazy? When you meet him in person and spend that kind of time, and he's not on his his attack mode thing, he does not strike you as a crazy person or a person who doesn't listen or can't hear things. Again, they were very mad at me for saying this, but that's what happened. And I am not a liar.
Bill Maher just dropped a political bombshell, and he did it sitting across from none other than right-wing firebrand Tim Pool. You'd expect sparks to fly between the two, right? Wrong. What actually went down was a brutal verbal execution of the Democratic Party, and Maher didn't hold back. Instead of clashing with Pool, Maher unleashed a full-on assault on the left, mocking, dismantling, and dissecting their every move like a man who's had enough. Forget polite disagreements. This was a flamethrower session, and the DNC was the target. At this point, Maher is torching Democrats harder than most conservatives do. And if he keeps this up, don't be surprised if he's wearing a red hat and filling in that GOP bubble by 2028. Welcome to the channel where the fake filters come off and the real drama begins. If you crave raw, unfiltered political fireworks, stick around, because we're just getting started.
I just don't feel like anybody in this country can even presume that what people think about them is anywhere near the truth. And if you do think that, you're very naive, and people are just going to want to believe. Somebody told me just the other day that, speaking of girlfriends, this one is funny. This one wasn't in that list, but they could have put it there. But they were out to dinner with a few people, and this person said that I used to date Ann Coulter.
I've heard that. I've heard it.
Okay, well, it's not true, and both of us would say that. Now, am I friends with her? Yes. And anyone who doesn't like that can go fuck themselves. I'll be friends with whoever I want. I think I proved that over and over again, including with Donald Trump. You know, I believe in talking to people. But it's not like I've ever, to either one of them, given an inch on what my beliefs are.
Maher kicked things off with what seemed like a throwaway question, but Poole wasn't playing softball. He came in hot, torching the political circus unraveling across America. Maher, ever the provocateur, leaned in, lit the fuse, and watched the fireworks begin. He torched the left for their meltdown over his talks with Trump, branding them thin-skinned, hypocritical, and allergic to open dialogue. The real twist? Maher didn't push back against Poole, he backed him. The two, an unlikely duo, started tag-teaming the Democrats with ruthless precision, jabbing at every weak spot with cold, calculated fire. But just when it felt like the heat couldn't get higher, boom. Maher dropped the real bombshell, and everything that came before suddenly felt like the warm-up act.
Modus operandi of news organizations used to be informing the public, and then it became audience stroking. How can we interpret this thing that just happened in such a way that our audience will give us likes?
Yep.
I like that. I like you said it that way. I like your point of view because that's what I already think, and I hate them, and so I like.
He's right.
He's right.
Yeah.
No, and it's just.
I worked for ABC. Started ABC and Univision did a joint venture in 2014 called Fusion, and I was at Vice, and I moved over there, and then they told me that the new trend was going to be called mission-driven storytelling, and I said, "What does that mean?" And they said, "There's no such thing as objectivity. Everyone is subjective. So we're going to tell the stories that our audience wants to hear." I had a meeting with the president, and he was talking to me about this, and I said, "Does that mean if there is a news story that is true and important, we would choose not to report it because it might upset our audience?" And he said, "Yeah, I think that's fair." The company went bankrupt. They fired everybody. But this wasn't unique to them. They were chasing the trend. One of their marketing guys told me explicitly, "We want to maximize shares because we have to maximize views."
The tension was thick early in the talk, and it already felt like something dangerous was about to break. Maher knows the seductive lie that your side is the righteous one, the savior of democracy, while the other is pure evil. And while he admits both sides play that game, he made one thing brutally clear. It's the left that's mastered the delusion. Then came Bernie. Sanders, the self-proclaimed moral oracle of the left, got dragged into the crossfire. Maher didn't flinch. He zeroed in on Bernie's anti-capitalist crusade, tearing into the noble socialist act and revealing the rot behind the curtain. It was classic Maher, sharp, scathing, and surgical. But you could feel it. This wasn't his final strike. That glint in his eye said only one thing. The real devastation was still loading.
There are big problems, I think, politically. It's like this idea that we're the good people. We know we know what's good. And anyone who doesn't agree with that, well, they're an existential threat to America. And that happens on both sides.
I agree, but you know, it is a weird position for me to be in. I was talking to some friends before the show, and I was saying, like, I think that if you and I discussed policy solutions for the country, I'd probably be to the left of you. But
in some ways, yeah.
Probably most ways.
You like Bernie.
I did.
I like Bernie, but I don't want socialism in America.
You know,
more than what we have. We already have plenty.
But the issue is, today I feel like what defines someone politically is not, it's not the policies they want, but it's what they believe to be true.
Correct, exactly. Yeah, Matt Taibbi writes about this.
I'm a big fan, he's amazing.
Tim Pool didn't just drop a bombshell, he dropped a mirror. And what stared back was brutal. This wasn't some breaking revelation. It was a gut punch of truth we've all felt, but few have dared to say. Modern media isn't informing you, it's performing for you. Pool tore into the facade, exposing a cynical circus where journalism has been replaced by theater. Clicks over clarity, outrage over objectivity, narrative over nuance. He painted a damning portrait of networks chasing ratings like addicts chasing a fix, willing to burn trust for one more viral headline. And the public? They caught on. They felt the spin, the gaslighting, the smug, curated echo chambers, especially from the gleaming studios of ABC, MSNBC, and their ideological kin. So when it came time to vote, they didn't just show up, they roared. But if you thought that was the haymaker, hold your breath. Because what Pool said next, that wasn't just a critique. That was the kill shot, the kind you don't walk away from.
We have to maximize views because we've already sold a set amount to the advertisers. One company bought 500,000 views from us. We don't complete that contract until those views are delivered. How do we deliver them? Angering moms. Middle-aged women who are angry share more than anyone else, so we're gonna write stories that do that. That's actually what he told me. So it was social justice, it was racism.
I just pictured my writers all guffawing just because, you know, I've had like a writer's room since 1993, Politically Incorrect.
Yeah, wow.
That show went on there. So
I was a little kid.
Yeah, I'm sure. And it's, you know, the joy of my life. One of the great joys is having a writer's room. I've said this before, but like Paul McCartney once said, I'd rather have a band than a Rolls Royce.
Who's always fanning the flames? Who keeps turning every disagreement into an existential crisis, every issue into a battlefield? One name keeps coming up, the Democrats, and right at the heart of it, the DNC. What used to be fringe tactics are now center stage. Identity politics isn't just part of their platform, it is the platform. Time and time again, they double down, not to heal, not to bridge divides, but to exploit them. This isn't noise, it's not confusion. It feels like strategy, cold, ruthless, and deliberate. A political machine that thrives on outrage, cloaked in righteousness. Could the DNC actually be stoking unrest, intentionally? Not just allowing the chaos, but manufacturing it for political gain? It's a disturbing question. But the signs aren't subtle anymore. They're screaming. And just when you think you've wrapped your head around the scale of it, Tim Pool steps in and lobs the real grenade. A revelation so explosive, so damning, it doesn't just challenge the narrative, it obliterates it. In one stroke, he flips the whole script, exposing not just political gamesmanship, but a system built on manipulation, division, and raw, calculated power. And once that truth is out, there's no going back.
Politics are like, if you were, you know, I'm like a Chicago liberal, but the way things have gone, especially with like the woke stuff, this is where I end up in this position, and so does my neighborhood. I think it's interesting to see my neighborhood reflective of my politics and vice versa.
I think the phrase I was using last year was aggressively non-common sense or uncommonsensical. And it's like I accent aggressively. I don't think the woke people who have the vast amount of energy really in the Democratic Party understand why the people vote against them. And it's like, because if you add up like how many people are really affected by some of the aggressively uncommon sense things, it's probably not that many.
You had a great bit on that.
Yeah.
Surprised? You're not alone. Tim Pool isn't some far-right fire starter. He's a liberal. That's the twist the left doesn't want you to remember. And yet, he's become one of the loudest critics of the very movement he once aligned with. Why? Because he didn't change. The left did. The Democratic Party is bleeding support, and it's not hard to see why. Until they break ties with the radical woke echo chamber that's hijacked their platform, whether it's a noisy fringe or the new mainstream, they'll keep losing voters who once had their back. Poole didn't walk away from liberal values. He walked away from the dogma, from the policing of thought, the purity tests, the cultural blacklists. And that's not evolution, it's excommunication. The DNC doesn't need rebranding. It needs a brutal wake-up call. Voters aren't running to the right. They're running away from the left's authoritarian tone. And Maher, he's not done. If you thought he was bold before, brace yourself. What he says next? It's the detonation point.
But I do think that the way the Democratic Party has handled opposition has guaranteed the kind of Trumpian politics.
Well, I'm sure you heard about my little trip to the White House.
Absolutely.
And
very impressive.
Thank you. And the thing that upset the far left so much, these same people who believe in the crazy things I was just mentioning, and the ones who really hate me, they really found a new reason to hate me, because when I came back and gave my report about it, you know, among the things I said, to your point about everything is he crazy, was, I think, word for word, a crazy person doesn't live in the White House. A person who plays a crazy person on TV lives in the White House.
Yeah.
And they found that very triggering.
You could see it. Pure rage simmering behind Maher's eyes as he laid it all out. He wasn't just criticizing policies, he was warning of a nightmare. The far left isn't nudging the country leftward, they're marching us straight into cultural collapse. Maher called them out for what they really are: ideological bombs dressed up as progress. And the fuse? Already burning. But then came the part that froze the room. Maher zeroed in on a policy so disturbing, it stripped the woke facade bare. Children undergoing gender transitions without parental consent or even knowledge. That's not inclusion. That's institutional betrayal. We're talking about irreversible decisions made by minors, while parents are shut out entirely. That's not just overreach, that's a direct assault on the very idea of family, of guardianship, of sanity. Maher didn't soften the blow, he turned it into a warning. If this is what they're testing now, what happens when they're in full control? This wasn't just a rant, it was a prophecy. And if we don't pay attention, the next phase won't be a debate. It'll be the fallout.
When you add up these things, and, you know, men competing in women's sports, and like just too much indoctrination of children with sexual ideas that they're too young to understand. Like, when you add up all these things that get in the media a lot, it paints a picture, not a wrong picture, in the mind of the average voter that, yeah, maybe policy-wise I would do better under the Democrats or Bernie Sanders, but these other people just seem fucking crazy. They seem like committed to just going to absurd lengths just for shits and giggles, just for the fuck of it, just this bizarre attachment to things that are just ridiculous.
Bill Maher lit a match, and the liberal media caught fire. All it took was one line. Maybe Donald Trump isn't insane. Maybe, just maybe, the nonstop demonization isn't as airtight as we've been told. That single comment, it shattered the illusion. The echo chamber screamed, headlines exploded, but Maher wasn't apologizing. He was pulling the curtain back on something much bigger. We're living in a time where outrage is weaponized, where every headline is engineered not to inform, but to inflame. Division isn't a bug, it's the business model. And the media, they're cashing in. No, you'll probably never get a one-on-one with Trump, but that doesn't mean you have to swallow every scripted smear from networks with a clear agenda. There's a deeper truth behind the curtain, and it doesn't fit neatly into a 60-second soundbite. Listen to the people who've actually been in the room, who've seen the man, not just the caricature, because the real danger isn't Trump, it's blindly believing a narrative crafted to keep you compliant. When the media tells you who to hate, they're not giving you news, they're taking your power.
But that was my estimation. Again, to your point about, is he just crazy? When you meet him in person and spend that kind of time, and he's not on his his attack mode thing, he does not strike you as a crazy person or a person who doesn't listen or can't hear things. Again, they were very mad at me for saying this, but that's what happened. And I am not a liar. That's my main bond with the audience. So even if I offended some people by telling the truth, in the long run, that's what I do.
Love him or hate him, Bill Maher stands out in a landscape where nearly everyone's bending the news to fit their tribe. He's one of the last voices refusing to play by partisan rules. Maher doesn't just call out the other side, he calls out every side, left, right, and that messy, hypocritical middle. In a sea of echo chambers and political cheerleaders, that kind of raw, unfiltered honesty doesn't just stand out, it cuts through like a razor. He proves something too many have forgotten. You can champion progressive ideals and still hold your own team accountable. You can be fiercely opinionated without surrendering your ability to think critically. That rare mix of courage and clarity, that's exactly what people are starving for right now. In an age where every debate turns into a battlefield and nuance gets bulldozed by noise, Maher is proof that critical thinking isn't dead. It's just been drowned out. He doesn't always get it right, and he's the first to admit it. But he shows up, he questions, he challenges, he risks standing alone. And that's the conversation we need more of, desperately. So here's the deal. Think independently. Question everything. Don't let the loudest voices decide what you believe. If this shook you up, share it. Start the conversation, hit like, smash subscribe, because trust me, the real story, it's just getting started. Until next time, stay sharp, stay skeptical, and above all, stay curious.